recording. This is Whyte Noise with a Y, because why?
Why not?
Why not? If you're just joining us, I'm Michael Judson Berry.
Hey, and I'm Ryan Wilder.
And this is a podcast where we each have 10 minutes to discuss a topic that was given to us previously. If you've been listening before, we had our friend Chelsea on. She couldn't make it today, so we'll flying solo. We're going to miss Chelsea. Usually she would judge us. We have no judge today, so we're just going to judge each other. And decide who won, or we're just going to talk.
Which I think we do anyway, so...
Today's kind of a fun change of pace, and it's going to be great. And today we're discussing hoarding.
Oh, I'm very excited for this topic. Actually, it was a little bit of a deep dive in, like a little bit of research, and I was totally intrigued by what I found, but then I also have personal stories about hoarding.
Okay, same. It's going to be a little mishmash. And I love that, yes, sometimes it's like deeply researched. Sometimes it's us just being like, well, I have this wacky cousin. So
well, mine really actually relates back to an ex. So
okay. I'm very excited. Well, shall we start then? Because I actually can't wait to hear these stories. Would you like to kick us off then? And I will time you. I'll be the keeper of the times for your 10
I'm happy
minutes.
to. I had your timer up, but let's do it.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, yours is probably going to be kind of a juicy story. So then why don't we end with you?
Okay, whatever you like.
And I'll go first. Because, you gotta keep the people excited. And I feel like if you have a story about an ex, I would plow through my story to listen to yours.
Well, now I'm like, you put a lot of pressure on me. I hope it's good. Like, I hope you like it.
Welcome. It's going to be putting pressure on because it's going to be a diamond of a story.
It is.
Isn't that how diamonds work?
Well,
I just think about that Ferris Bueller thing where he's like, he's so tight. If you put a piece of coal up his ass, by the end of the week, you'd have a diamond.
It'll be a diamond. Yes,
something like that.
Or maybe we're just a diamond in the rough.
There you go. Or like it rough. I don't know. Sorry, Chelsea's not here. So if somebody had to tell a dirty joke. Okay. So you time me. I will go first then.
All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Ready, set, go.
Okay. Hoarding. So, and I hope my dad doesn't hear this. So I'm going to start out with the personal side.
Oh, no.
So when I think of hoarding, sadly, I think of like my dad's side of the family. So my parents, and for anyone listening who knows my parents, they're two very different people as far as like how they deal with ownership of various things. And as they get older, that is only becoming more amplified. So my mom is a real like when in doubt, throw it out person. So like you will come home, I'll come home and things will just be gone. And she's like, I don't know. I don't think you need your high school yearbooks, do you? They're just, well, actually, she hasn't thrown those out yet, but she just like loves to throw things away.
Michael, you haven't looked at them in years.
I mean, to be fair, she's just like, you don't even know what's in there. She's like, she just doesn't want clutter. She doesn't want anything around her. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. I'm going to come home one day. The dog is going to be like in the garbage bin.
Well, do you know who's like that in my life is James.
Yes. Yeah.
He is the adamant like goodbye, and I'm like,
get it out.
Why is it gone?
Yeah.
No.
This has sentimental value. Yeah. No. She's the ultimate Marie Kondo. She'll just empty your house. But my dad is getting like he's never been great at throwing things out, but now it's getting like worse. Like he just wants to keep everything. So like she will throw things out, and then in the middle of the night, like he'll go out to the garbage and get it and take it back, and just like hide things in the basement. And like my parents have a very big house, and like the attic and the basement have become like where he can just sort of store things. And the last time I was home, I was up in our attic, and I was just like, there were just piles of stuff, but it was kind of fun. Like things I found, like old toys that I had when I was a kid that I was like, I know my mom threw this out. And then my dad went and found it. But some things like
that's kind of cute though. That means he had some like an emotional attachment and memories. Yeah. Come on. I love it.
I know. I was like, oh, Paul.
I support Paul in this.
But some things, there was one sort of infamous one, which was the cracked toilet. So my parents' house was very old. It was built in the 1920s. And there was an original porcelain toilet. And it finally died. It was cracked. And my mom was like, we got to get rid of this. And I helped her get it out to the curb. And my dad, like weeks later, we went down to the garage and it was down there. And we were like, you saved a broken, like, okay. There are certain things, but you saved a broken toilet and a box of old broken crayons. His thing is always like, I'm going to fix it one day. He was like, I can fix it. And we're like, you cannot fix this broken old toilet. But
Did
it
you say
stayed
crayons?
there. And crayons. Like a box of old broken crayons.
I like the way you said crayons.
Oh, is that my upstate New York accent coming out?
I love it. Yeah, I was like, wait, did he say crayons or crayons?
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 Crayons. Oh, now I don't know. No, oh, dear. Crayons. Now I'm just going to bitch. I don't even say the word. I just spasm.
You're welcome. I've now made you self-conscious about that word.
Oh, no. Crayons. Now I'm just share. Crayons.
Crayons.
Crayons. If I could turn back crayons.
Crayons.
Now you just sounded like the pedophile from Family Guy when you said that. Crayons?
Would you like to come over and touch my crayons?
Oh, no.
I maybe did that too well.
You did. But from Family Guy, he's a character. Where was I going? Oh, but yeah, so the cracked toilet was a pretty famous one. And that's when he really developed the reputation for like borderline, if you weren't married to my mother, you would be a hoarder. Because his parents' house was like that. Like you went into their basement and they kept like newspapers, stacks of like newspapers and magazines.
Did he explain the toilet thing? Did he explain why?
He was like, I can fix it. And we're like, you can't. This is like the same. He's always like, he has this idea that like, why throw something out if you can fix it and then it can have value? But the problem is that's how you end up with, I want to say 5 broken air conditioners in your attic.
Like window ones?
Not even an exaggeration, like window ones. And those old ones that are now like a shade of yellow that were white, but now that's sort of like that yellowy color.
They've lived their life.
They have, and they're time to go. But like he still insists he can fix them, but he just doesn't. They just pile. So that's the personal thing. It just makes me think of my poor sweet father and his family. And like even their house, my grandparents' house was little, but there were just paths through the house, you know, of like, you didn't walk in and look at it immediately go, oh, this is a hoarder house. It wasn't like you look at hoarder houses where they're just like garbage and trash.
Oh,
like,
it's
it wasn't
insane.
Trash, but it was like stuff. And it was just like the carpets had like well-worn little paths through them. And they really loved those tables with like spokes. So also like you would go along the path, but it was also kind of treacherous because you would hit like a spoked table and just have bruises everywhere. Like it was like a minefield. Anyway, so that's the personal side, is like the Barry side of the family who just can't part with things.
I was going to say maybe an offering. So I discovered this up here and I didn't realize this was an option, but we just cleaned out a whole bunch of like metal and we threw away old appliances and we took out the old heating things. We took them to a recycler in town and received cash for them because of all the heavy metals that are inside of the stuff. So like the copper, because all those air conditioners have like heat exchangers and pumps and I don't know, a whole bunch of stuff. I should go back and listen to the AC unit one. Hint, hint, everyone. Yeah. And but they'll give you cash for the stuff. So I took all this crap over to the recycler and they gave me $275 for it.
What?
So there's at least like in terms of that connection or wanting something out of it, you actually get something out of it. So maybe that's like a incentive to make some of it go away.
That's true. And that explains, in my old neighborhood, there was a guy that would drive around with a pickup truck and just like pick up all the junk.
They get cash for that stuff.
Wow.
Yeah.
I thought you just, well, okay, well, cut to my new job.
You thought they were hoarders.
Okay, so that's the personal side. So in preparation, because I was like, okay, we should research something. I did Google the history of the word hoarding, which dates back. They said it dates back. There were words for it to Greek and Roman cultures, but that's more like rich people who are just like, I'm rich and I want to show off my wealth. The first time hoarding in the way that we use hoarding appeared in, they say, in England in the late 1500s, just because the first time they saw it was in Shakespeare plays. Shakespeare was the first writer to like really use hoarding in the modern way that we use it. And I thought I was going to go down a deep dive of like, okay, well, the history of hoarding. But then when I looked into that, what it turns out, and actually I'll say real quick. So the history of hoarding, the word just means a treasure or a valuable stock or store. It comes from a French word, blah, 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 word stuff. And the first time we think of it, there was a documented case of modern hoarding in 1947 with the brothers Homer and Langley, who hoarded things in the Collier Mansion in New York. And I do remember reading about them. They were two like reclusive brothers in New York who had this like insane apartment that they like, as I recall, authorities had to come because they didn't pay their taxes. And then one of the brothers died. One brother died.
That's right.
And they found his like corpse in there. And it was just like when they went in, it was like this disgusting, like precursor to the show Hoarders. Like these were the OG hoarders.
Didn't shit fall on him? Didn't like something fall on him and the one brother was crushed
that's how
or something
he died.
like that?
Like a wall of trash just like fell on him. Okay, so that's the history of hoarding. I figured I was like, well, Ryan's the better researcher, so you're going to get more into it. But where hoarding with Shakespeare ended up, turns out Shakespeare was kind of a bad dude. So he wasn't like a hoarder in like, you know, hoarders we know and love. He was a hoarder in like a bad guy way. So he lived through a famine at the end of the 1500s. At the end of, it was like the Great Famine of like 1596 or something like that. And Shakespeare at this point was very successful and he was very wealthy. And so what he did was he hoarded a bunch of things like grain, malt, and barley. And then he resold it to poor people at majorly inflated prices. And he used this as a way of tax evasion.
I was going to say, like...
and there's my timer. I finally got to it. And this all came out... And yeah, they say research shows Shakespeare evaded taxes and hoarded grain. He was like a really like dirty businessman.
I was about to say, I feel like he'd do well in society right now. I feel
he
like
would fit in very well. Yeah, he's just like he would work in finance now. He wouldn't be like.
I was going to say, or jumping on the stage of a Trump rally trying to make an X.
Exactly. Yeah, he would be that guy. He would totally be a Trump supporter. It turns out Shakespeare would totally be a Trump supporter. But yeah, like, and they only found that out because his plays, like early plays were all about like feasting and food and people were all about it. And then in Coriolanus, there's a shift and it's about people like keeping things. And they were like, why would he do this shift? And his plays where leads all of a sudden were like keeping stuff rather than like gorging on it and feasting and stuff.
So interesting.
And it related to the famine. And it turns out that's how they figured it out was they were like, oh, it turns out he was also a really shady business dealer.
You know, it's funny when you started into this, I figured you were going to say like the famine had a significant psychological impact, which maybe it did.
It might have.
Like I figured it was going down a route like he just kept a lot of stuff until it rotted because of the concern. But no, he was like, no, I'm going to be a bad person with this.
Yeah, because they had the famine on and off for like 6 years. And it was like he figured it out from the first year. And then he was like, you know what, I'm going to hoard everything and then sell it to poor people who need it at majorly inflated prices.
I think it's time we cancel
Shakespeare. The Bard was kind of bad.
Bye, Shakespeare.
Okay, well, I went over, but that is my hoarding story.
He was a bad guy. And the nice thing is because you did a whole bunch of the history stuff, it's a nice parlay into where I'll start, and then I'll get into the personal
That's why
story.
I ended on the history stuff.
Ooh.
Okay, are you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
Your time starts now.
So I had to look up the origins of hoarding and a little bit more of the psychological stuff and did a really deep kind of dive into it. And I'll do my best to kind of breeze over most of it. But essentially, hoarding is kind of an evolutionary behavior that's a holdover, obviously, because as you know, like Homo sapiens at their start needed to collect and keep things to get through harsh seasons or to have food to survive, etc. But obviously, well, and I'm not going to say for everyone, but we do live generically, if you will, in a society of abundance. So it's a bit of a hangover, if you will. Modern hoarding actually has really strong links to OCD, anxiety, and depression. And when brain studies have been done, like I actually went through and read all the various facets of the brain that are engaged in the whole kind of hoarding activity. But it seems like there's overactivity in neurological centers that impact decision making, emotional regulation, and attachment. And you have a pullback of your prefrontal cortex where there's less activity, where your prefrontal cortex controls impulses. So with the overactivity in basically, it looks like 4 other functions of your brain and the underperformance of your prefrontal cortex, you get into this situation of like impulse buying, associating emotion with the things that you purchase, and then basically have like a really tough time being able to say goodbye to things.
Interesting.
They also say that there's other societal things that play into it. And I heard a little bit of it when you were talking about your dad. Like, for example, the stigma of wastefulness, or if I hold on to it, it will eventually be useful, or I will eventually fix it. And then we also operate in a society where consumerism drives, more is better. The more I have of something, the better. And with the reduction in overall like cost of goods, like, so in other words, think about hopping on Temu and all of the crazy things that you can buy and acquire for virtually nothing, it kind of plays into the whole thing. So where this kind of branches off hoarding and the relationship that I was trying to get into, and it turns out there's a strong one, is in extreme couponing. And extreme couponing is really the bridge for which I'll kind of get into the kind of personal story. So extreme couponing, and couponing itself actually started in the 1800s, and it was, as I read it, initiated by Coca-Cola, who had paper vouchers for free samples. And really that concept blew up through World War II, right? And then basically hit a massive explosion when coupons started to go digital and there were digital schemes. They say that the behavior is associated with the thrill. So there's like the thrill of getting the deal, the thrill of getting a bunch of stuff for nothing. There's like strategy involved. So it has a little bit of a relationship to gambling. But acquiring the bargains kind of gets into like a compulsive purchasing behavior. And, where, as I read it, and no shocker, is where it starts to go out of control is if you're buying truly more than you need, you're holding on to it to the point of expiration and or kind of like never using it. So a little bit of my own like background. So my mom was probably one of the first extreme couponers, if you will. But it was very much interrelated to the groceries and the things that we need. So we would spend Sundays. I think Sunday was Sunday when you'd get the paper. We'd get the Sunday paper. That's right.
Yeah,
the Sunday
and it
paper
had the little magazine in it with all the coupons.
Yeah, that pack of coupons. And like Sunday morning would be like post church, come home, rip that thing open, and we would be tasked with cutting out the coupons. I would have try and find the one that had the underwear ads in it, because
oh my god,
underwear ads. And my mom had this like whole trifold, or this massive fold that all these coupons were organized into. And we went to a supermarket that I believe was called Superfresh. I might be wrong. I don't know. I have to look that up, or maybe not, because it doesn't matter. And they offered triple coupons on certain days. So we would go, and my mom was also very particular about what we could buy and what we could eat. But if we had a coupon for it and it made it virtually cost free, we could have it. So I was always focused on like, how do I get the sugary cereals or whatever, right? So we would go, and my mom would purchase $350, $400 of groceries, and we'd walk out with a bill of about $5.
Whoa.
Yeah. And she was very good at this. And I think it was the same thing. It was like the game, the thrill, but everything that was acquired was all stuff that we needed or would consume as a family. So we were at Shoppers Food Warehouse, which was like a warehouse style sort of like grocery store, again, where my mom would coupon. And she had left a little trifold of the coupons in the top of her basket as we walked outside. And I believe like as we turned our backs or we were loading stuff into the car, somebody reached over, grabbed it, and stole it.
No.
And it was one of the first times in my life that my mom said, fuck. And she's like, where is it? She's like looking around, and then like, she kind of like clenches up and she's like, this makes me so fucking mad. And, and my sister and I were like, oh, this is bad. This is not good. And I just remember being very quiet on the car ride home, and like a few days passing, and like it would come up again. And my mom was like, I was so angry. And I was like, yeah, you said fuck. And she went, no, I didn't. And I was like, oh, I was like, you did. And she's like, no, I did. I did not say fuck. And I was like, you most certainly said fuck.
My God. Those moments I feel like are ingrained when you first see your parent get like really like livid, you know? Like I remember with us, it was like when Elson and I accidentally let the cat out that my mom loved. And my mom's pretty even keel. She's more of a guilt tripper than a yeller. And that was the first time she yelled. And she was like, you left the door open. And she stood at our front door and she was opening it and slamming it closed to punctuate every thought. She was like, you let the cat out. You can't believe this. Like slamming the door. And we both were like,
she had a full moment.
She had a moment. I'm surprised she didn't break the door. And we just sat there again, like, you don't know what to do because you're little. You're like, I just need to be as quiet as possible. Like, I will never forget that. That's her version of saying fuck.
Let me get really small and get out of your way.
Because I'm afraid I'm never going to get fed again.
So, like, obviously, I was cool with the couponing thing. I understood the impacts of it. And my ex, or the gentleman that I dated for a solid 5 years before I met James, let's just call him Bob. I'm not going to call him out by name. And Bob was an extreme couponer and leveraged like these methodologies to go to CVS. And I think CVS was kind of the focal point where they had like extra bucks that you would develop. So it was a combination of digital couponing, acquiring extra bucks, and following the deals as provided by CVS to essentially get everything for free or to the point of being paid out. So you had extra money and extra bucks that you could use to purchase virtually anything else. But part of what you would do is you would, like, if you had the extra bucks, you would apply the extra bucks to the next deal and kind of keep this thing cyclically going. Now, this is where it gets into the hoarding side of it, because he would do this and acquire tons of shit that we wouldn't need, use, or whatever. So, like, I think I had shared with you earlier, when we broke up, I think I threw away 50 plus boxes of hair dye, various ladies' hair dye. Hair dye. That were all underneath of our bed, right?
And did he need hair dye?
No, but it was just the deal. He got it for free. So it was the whole thing. So, although I think the one fun thing that came out of this with it is that he had these giant bins of consumer goods. So one Christmas, and like the stocking is a big thing for our family, is I got one of these bins or multiple of these bins, and I went through and individually wrapped. So like everyone got vaginal wipes, and everyone got new toothbrushes, and everyone got new
wipes.
I was like,
I mean, they're handy. They're a good gift. I mean,
I was like, why do you
has
have
a vagina
vaginal wipes? Yeah, you know. So everyone got vaginal wipes, and everyone got something from this box. And it was actually really fun. Like, everyone still talks about that Christmas because of all the weird shit. But the nice part is we were able to put all of this stuff to kind of like work, if you will, as opposed to letting it sit in bins and tubs and whatever else and just rot through time. So, yeah, that's hoarding. Actually, there's some deeper stories there. Bob's mom was a pretty big hoarder. I'll never forget, they did clean out his childhood bedroom, and we slept in there one night. And I remember I got like a chest infection after sleeping there because
there was so much just mold and dust in the air.
Yeah, there was so much shit that had been in there. And then like I wasn't allowed to go into certain parts of the house, but I did peer into a few rooms, and it was definitely like, you know, the pathways that allowed you to get to certain places. And, you know, and like, you know, his Bob's mom had challenges as it related to this. So I'll like, not making fun of her. I know it's a really hard thing for a family. But yeah, it was like there was a interlink to it. And if I'm being really honest, I do personally put emotion on inanimate things, and it does make it hard for me to get rid of things. James doesn't give a shit, right in the trash can.
Yeah. And same. And that's why I think it's good to pair with somebody like that. Like Brian is like that too, where I feel like I don't see him ever being a hoarder because he likes things very clean.
Yeah.
And simple.
James is the
Whereas I'm like, but this t-shirt, I got it in high school. And, you know, I'm probably going to, I relate to my dad, you know.
There's just the other day this happened. There's a a large glass cup that I have here that is from college. And I think of it as like my college glass, like, and as if this fucking matters. And James will go to use it. And I'm like, you can't use that glass. And he'll be like, why? And I'll be like, because that's my college glass and you break things. So if you break my college glass, I'm going to be pissed. And then he'll like dump his drink into something else and like put it in the sink and be like, happy.
Oh my God. That's funny.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, we're over time, but I was just enjoying this. And can I cheat and tell one more story?
Yes, tell it.
Because I can't believe I didn't think of this. So, because I know I didn't have much time, so I wanted to say more about like the first thing that sprung to mind, obviously, was my dad. And then I thought Shakespeare being a bad guy was fun. But also like, and I'm not going to say, so it's relatives of relatives. Recently, because I thought people like who are proper hoarders, you know, I was like, they're just on TV. You're like, you know, your ex, every once in a while you'd meet somebody and they're like, no, I know a hoarder. And I was so excited to finally have one. Relatives of relatives. It's a very like New Jersey version of Grey Gardens, where like it's an elderly mother and her adult daughter. They live together. And my relatives recently went to try and clean out the house, and they showed us videos. And I've met these people. They're lovely, lovely people. But it was hoarding like nothing I've seen, even like on TV. Like their water had been shut off. So they were getting water from other places, but keeping the water in like weird things. Like they had, which I think is impressive, they had like a toothpaste tube because they kept everything, literally everything. And when I say they kept everything, like their house, there were rooms you couldn't get into because the room was so full, like they filled it to the door and then blocked the door with things. So there were rooms that were just impenetrable. Their backyard was completely full, looked like a garbage dump. And like there were cars in the backyard that were full of things. Like you open the door and things just
They were those
out.
neighbors.
They were those neighbors. And like sheds of just stuff. They had like pool toys. They don't have a pool. They had multiple pool ladders just in case one day they ever got a pool. And the mother is in her, she's old, she's in her 80s and is like freakishly strong from doing this. From like, she would like prowl the neighborhood and go through people's trash and then take things and carry it back. She somehow got a stationary bike in her 80s, got a stationary bike from the neighbor's house down the street, got it to her house, up the porch stairs, and then up the narrow stairs to the second floor because there's no room for it on the first floor. And she somehow squeezed it into a space. And back to the water, they found like a toothpaste tube full of water, like a used toothpaste Crest tube. They found little bottles of like Tylenol full of water. Like,
I mean, that's creative.
The places where they kept water was just bizarre. Like not in buckets, but in like little used things of like Motrin.
So these are people that if you had ran into them on the street, you would never know otherwise. They would have no idea.
You'd think they were like kind of eccentric, but like fairly normal. Like you'd just be like, oh, that woman's super nice. She's like a little like, she's a little weird, but like she's nice. Or not even weird. Yeah, I guess just normal people. But then their house, like they had so many refrigerators that were just full. They kept every egg carton that they ever had because they thought they might have a use. It's like we went out to dinner with these relatives. They showed us just the videos and it's insane. And the reason they finally started was they were like, their water had been turned off and a section of their living room ceiling had caved in.
Oh,
and they were just living with it like that.
Oh,
they don't know how long they were actually living it with it like that because they couldn't have somebody in to fix the ceiling because they couldn't get to it because it had collapsed over a pile of stuff.
Over
like
trash.
I don't even know where they sat down, and they couldn't shower there, so they were showering like at friends' houses and stuff like that, like or at like the gym,
or not at all.
Or not at all. Like, well, they're not dirty. That's the thing. When you see them, they're not dirty. And they were always actually well dressed. That's why it's like you wouldn't have guessed it. Because they always are clean and put together.
How did they deal with the cleaning out? Did they have to like take... Yeah, I was going to say like that's usually the part of it. In the background
of the video of showing the insane, you just hear like screaming upstairs of them just like fighting like to keep the stuff.
I'm not going to lie. I do have like personally, like I do, like I told you, like I put like I'll affiliate emotions with inanimate things for whatever reason. I have to be in a place to do it. Like I have to be like, hey, I'm going to go in here. I'm going to clean all this crap out. I'm going to refine it down. Like if James just drops it on me, I'm like, I'm not doing it. I can't do it right now. I'm not mentally prepared to do it. So, I probably have a little bit of this tendency in there myself. So.
And I think kind of same. I think mine comes from because I had to move a lot because I'm an actor and I did just like theater for like 10 years where I would go off to a contract for a couple of months, come back and I was subletted. So everything I owned had to be able to fit in my trunk. So once I settled, I was like, oh, I can keep things.
Oh, I've got some things.
I have so many things. Like I have an unnecessary amount of books. Like I think like, yeah, so I probably shouldn't judge because cut to me in 20 years, I could very well be this person. But
well, it's something for us to both work on.
But again, that's why we partner ourselves with people who go, no, you don't need that. That is garbage.
Yeah, exactly. Oh.
Throw that away. And
James is like, why do we still have this? That's fair.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you for letting me also tell that story.
100%.
Just because I was like, oh my God, I know one. I now have hoarders in my life. Grey Gardens make sense to me now. Okay, well, I guess we're at the point where normally there would be a winner.
You know what? I think we're both winners.
Oh, we're both winners.
We're going to split that hymen.
Story. We're going to split the hymen. Ooh.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about saying that.
I felt uncomfortable.
Me too. Oh, God. Okay. Well.
And with that,
if you want vaginal wipes in your Christmas stocking, you know who to
call me.
Okay, wonderful. What should our next thing be?
How about peeing one's pants?
Which isn't even a word, it's just a thing. Peeing your pants.
PP.
Okay.
Well, we could make the word PP. How's
PP.
that?
There we go.
PP.
Okay, next one will be PP. I feel like this because there's a story behind this. Okay.
Maybe.
Until then, this was Whyte Noise. What a pleasure always to see you. And we'll see you next time for PP.